Assalamu alaikum. This is Amina. Welcome back to Wellness Compass. I know it's been a little bit of a hiatus, but summers like life are very unpredictable. But here we are again. And as promised, Wellness Compass is designed to guide your health journey. It's we over here, experts don't give you medical advice. They provide you with tools to help you navigate your health journey on your own terms in the best possible fashion. And today, I have a perfect expert for that. Assalamu alaikum, Nadia.
Awesome.
How are you? Thank you for joining me
Good.
early this morning. I
Yeah,
so
I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. Nadia Quraishi is a holistic nutritionist and longevity coach who helps women boost their energy, reduce inflammation, and age with strength and clarity using a plant-powered approach and simple lifestyle shifts. She's the founder of Nourished by Nadia, as well as her upcoming program called the Energy Habit Method. So once you're done with this episode, I'm sure, Nadia, there's going to be a lot more subscribers to that program.
Thank you.
So like just as a segue from my last program where we discussed mental health of teenagers and adolescents, I know a healthy mind can only come from a healthy body, right?
Right.
And that's where you come in. And I know today our teenagers are having a very, very hard time navigating their nutritional concerns, their nutritional habits. There's so much out there, so much confusion, all that body imaging, body shaming, all of that. It's just like a conundrum and they just don't know what to eat. And for the most part, I feel like they end up making the wrong choices. There's a lot of confusion in today's nutritional landscape.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering if you see that since you're very closely associated with that.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely see that. I was thinking about this and like even just growing up, like I feel like this has always been a thing. And I think things are definitely getting more confusing now because there's social media and there's, so much more access to information. But when you look back at like, in the 90s and 2000s, like there were things like, the 90s was all about low fat diets, right? Like fat was any type of fat, even avocados, like all these different things were bad for you.
Yeah.
And then we come into the 2000s and it was like all about Atkins and the South Beach diet. And I feel like every decade there's always like something. And whether it's, whether it's affecting teens or even as adults, like we seem to get, trapped in that like diet mentality, unfortunately. And the problem is that obviously the media, um, like magazines and TV, that was always a thing. But then in the 2000s, social media started. And so since then, I've seen this trend where there's more and more of that. Now teens have access to social media, and there's good and bad, obviously, in that. But because of that, now there's even more exposure to a lot of the kind of the fear-based, calorie-focused approach and just talking about things like shrinking our bodies and being
Yeah.
skinny and all of these things, but that isn't necessarily the important thing. Like we want to be healthy, and that's the hard part, is to teach teenagers that it's about being healthy and strong and not about counting calories and being skinny and all of these things. So it's definitely, there's a lot more noise, I would say.
Yeah, I know. And in this era of social media barrage, like you're exposed to so many things, and teenagers, like you rightly pointed out,
Yeah.
essentially spend like I think all of their or 80% of their free time on social media.
Hmm.
And they're getting so many different things, and there's so many options, there's so many choices, and it's hard.
Yeah.
And just even from my own perspective, when I'm looking at all those commercials of this diet, this
Yeah.
exercise, that exercise, and everybody is promising the moon to you. So
Hmm.
you don't know what is
No.
the right choice. So I'm sure they're having a very, very hard time navigating that. And I think that stands true for the adults too. So So how do they, we pointed out the problem, but how do they
Yeah.
figure out what's best for them and what to choose and what not to choose?
So I would definitely say like it obviously, and I think a lot of it starts with like our generation and older, like being good role models. So yes, it's like obviously it's important for teens to know what to do, but I also think that a lot of the responsibility is on adults, right? So like if we're also like, let's say that we're also falling into the trap of following all these different diet trends, which I think a lot of people do because, like you
Definitely.
said, like,
Yeah.
right, like it's so easy because they're like promising all these different things. So the problem is then that, if we're doing that, then of course teens that are looking up to us are also going to fall into that and they're more susceptible to it. So that I would say that would be like the first thing is just like being a good role model. But in terms of like what teens should be doing, I would say definitely like eating as many whole foods, like less processed foods, right? Like that's, and this is honestly, this is information that's true for anyone, but I would say like less processed foods. Like we grew up in like the era of like all the processed foods and snacks and all of that. So I would definitely say like less processed foods, like less snacks that that are packaged. So like more fruits, more whole foods, more vegetables. Um, so that's obviously going to always be the case because this is also going to impact like they're going to have more more focus in school and less mood swings and less hormonal issues and all of that. So that would be like the number one thing is just like to just incorporate more whole foods, honestly. That would probably be my number one thing. And then, exercise is also another thing. I know we were talking about nutrition, but also
Yeah.
just in terms of fitness, I think that that is also a big piece of it too, and not to live like a sedentary lifestyle. And so I think just moving more is good and not in an obsessive way
Oh, yeah.
necessarily, but yeah, like not in an obsessive way. None of these things I would say for all of these things, like it should be in a way that doesn't feel restrictive, but is just done in a healthy way so that the goal is to just be stronger, as we get older.
Yeah, and actually, just going back to that, the other day I was reading one of your posts when you said,
Yeah.
just a quick walk in the morning is actually more energizing than a cup of coffee. And it kind of struck me as like, whoa,
Hmm.
we never look at it like that. People can't seem to wake up without their first cup
Yeah.
of coffee.
I know, exactly. And actually even just another thing which to me seems so simple, but hydration. Like a lot of people just and kids included, adults included, just don't drink enough water. And I would say
Yes.
that would also be like a third thing that I would say is just like hydrating is so, so important. So drinking enough water. And even like if you want to like incorporate some healthy, healthy things into a teenager's life and kids teens, I would say like cook together when possible, so that they're involved in the process and so that they're seeing, oh, okay, like these are obviously if it's something that's on a healthier scale, but like I would say definitely that is good. And then having that conversation about like, oh, like how healthy these whatever you're incorporating into the meal, but like just talking about it in like
Yeah.
like, oh, this is good for brain health or energy or whatever it is. So that would be another thing that I would say too.
And that would also, I believe, foster the habit of cooking food at home, developing
Hmm.
a habit because now we're all about quick fixes, grabbing food
Yeah.
on the way back home or from school or from a
Yeah.
class or this or that. So that would definitely generate that habit or develop that habit too. So that's, that has so many advantages in so many ways.
Right.
So also, you were just mentioning about how much noise there is out there, in social media
Yeah.
and all the other outlets that kids are exposed to. So how does that affect their mental health and their self-image? And is that leading into or feeding into more eating disorders and, about anxiety about food and all of that?
It is actually. So there was um So I know that it's of course like leading to a lot of confusion, but also obsession as well. So there are a lot more body image issues, more disordered eating behaviors, and anxiety, like you were saying. And there's definitely more pressure to look a certain way, and it's showing up a lot younger because teens are exposed to so much. There was actually a study from 2023 that found that 64% of teens are exposed to weight loss or diet content on social media, at least on a weekly basis. So that's a lot.
Yeah.
So imagine like how much of an impact that's having on them. You know, in terms of how many adolescents are actually being affected by this. So about 1 in 5 teens have struggled with some sort of disordered eating. So that's a really high amount.
Yeah.
That's like 20%. So another stat too that I had found, I was like looking up some, information, and during the pandemic, the number of teens and children hospitalized for eating disorders actually doubled. So that's so just sharing these stats, like it's really scary. And I see that unfortunately becoming more of an issue. And I think educating kids, being good role models, I think that that's going to have a really big impact to kind of like quiet a lot of the noise that is out there, hopefully.
And it's astounding. I don't think a lot of us realize, including me, how what the magnitude of this problem. We see
Yeah,
an occasional teen here and there in a friend circle or whatnot. Especially girls who are like, oh, it's with some odd eating behaviors, and they
yeah,
were like, we chart it up to, hey, she's just a teenager and she's going to grow
right.
out of it. But we don't realize the impact that it's having on their mental health, their growth,
Yeah.
their performance at school, and all of that. I know you've had this mantra about nutrition is as an empowerment and not restriction.
Mhm.
You want to discuss that a little bit more and tell us about it?
Sure. So I would definitely say like, so I personally am plant-based, right? And for a lot of people, they would think that that's very restrictive, but
Yeah.
to me, it actually opens up so much more because
Especially, I'm sorry to interrupt you, especially
yeah,
in
yeah,
babies, you
yeah.
bring that up and they're like, whoa, who can just live on plants? So,
I know. But the interesting thing is it actually opened me up to so much more because, like when you're eating meat as like your main like the main course, right? And then vegetables are kind of just like a side dish. Now, if you flip that and it's like, okay, so I'm not eating meat or dairy, and now it's like I'm having a lot, I have to like think of ways to make vegetables and lentils and things like that, like my main meal. It's actually made me so much more creative when it comes to meals. And also it's opened my eyes up to like it really did like open my eyes up to so many different types of grains and vegetables and like legumes like beans and lentils. Like there's so much out there where if you're just eating meat, it's actually very restrictive because there's so many other things out there, so many foods out there. So it's just a different way of of thinking about it, I guess.
yeah, and if a lot of people are not ready to make that transition, like
Yeah,
to switch over from a meat-focused
yeah,
diet to a plant-based diet, there's always, you could always mix and match,
yeah.
right? But you're right, with people focusing on meat, there's so much you can do with it, or there's so many options out there,
Mhm.
but we don't even explore the
No,
other options, the plant-based options, because we're not even thinking that way. Our
right.
mind is not designed to think, okay, maybe we could do this with this or this with that. I know you come up with these amazing, such delicious um, uh, dishes, and you're like, whoa, this is all and like I said, our palate hasn't even been exposed to it because we're not
Yeah,
thinking in that way. So it's just a mind shift that needs to happen,
yeah,
and other kind of food need to be incorporated in our diet instead of just meat focused food. What
right.
what does a positive or a balanced nutrition looks like to you for teens, for adults?
So I would definitely say obviously protein is always like a big thing and I think that there's a lot of focus on that, but I would also say yes, protein is important, but I would also say fiber is really important and I think that that's something that only like 5% of Americans have enough of. So like we want to aim to include more fiber in our diet. So even if you're, eating um like more of a meat-based diet, but that's okay. But like just incorporating like more fiber, which includes like, all the whole foods that I mentioned, lentils, beans, vegetables, fruit, like all of those things, flax seeds, like there's so many different things, but I would say definitely increasing that. I would also say, like I said, hydration is really important. Healthy fats. So things like avocados are really good. Obviously, you would want to like have different types of fats, but I would say that's a really great one to incorporate. Um, and then also like probiotics, like yogurts, and whether plant-based or not, but just like adding in different types of. And I would say, okay, so I would definitely say variety. So that would be like my number one thing is just like incorporate variety into your diet. Limit the processed foods, sugars, if you can, like just limiting those things. A lot of like the processed oils as well, like limiting those, and then I think you're good and not obsessing over anything and restricting yourself. And it's really just just being consistent versus being perfect about it all.
Great points. Variety. I think that's a great
Hmm.
takeaway because a lot of times we are very, very restrictive. Some you
Yeah,
talk to people and they're like, "Oh, I don't eat this. I don't like this. I don't want to. I've never tried
yeah,
that." So definitely. And the other two things that you touched on, and it just help me understand that, like, for example, as physicians, a lot of time we're telling people to in fact, a lot of gastro doctors are like talking about how to incorporate fiber in your diet for a
yeah,
healthy bowel habits, and then hydration. Both of those things are extremely important.
yeah,
And then probiotics are very important for gut flora.
mhm,
So just adding all of that
yeah.
alone will take away a lot of health issues from
I
you
know.
that you could come across in future that adults are facing right now, because probably because
Mhm.
of unhealthy food choices in the past. And then teenagers or adolescents, like you said, have this chance to incorporate this early on in their lives and
Yeah,
develop healthy eating habits. So yes, very, very important things to consider and follow. I know you touched on this a little bit too, about how we should be good role models for our kids, for our teenagers, and everybody that we're coming across as teachers, as educators, as physicians. So, can you just maybe highlight a few things that we should be doing
yeah.
to foster healthy habits in kids who are looking up to us?
Yeah. So I would definitely say like not being obsessive about ourselves, like and our own body image. Because I see no, and I see that amongst a lot of people, a lot of women who are always talking about like, oh, and I don't like using like certain words, but like like I don't like using the word fat or anything, but like these are words that people will use about
Yeah.
themselves and putting themselves down.
Yes.
And if teens are seeing that and kids are seeing that, then of course they're going to start internalizing that. So trying to limit that kind of talk and being positive about our own body image, I think is really important. So I would say the other thing is just modeling those habits. And so I would say, maybe start incorporating healthy habits into your lifestyle if you're not already. So things like exercising and eating well, and then when your teen sees that, they're going to want to do that too because they're seeing that you're doing it in a positive way. So those are just a couple of things. Also, I would say, and because I didn't mention this, but when it comes to teens, just watch out for early signs of stress around food.
Mhm.
I think that's something that we didn't really touch upon, but I would say, watch out for those signs. And if you see that, then start to have those conversations without any type of pressure around it.
So what signs are those? What should we watch out for?
So like, things like, oh, if you're, let's say that your child is not wanting to eat something
Yeah.
because like, like, or you're seeing that like they're eating less.
Hmm.
Those are a couple of things that I would say, or they start over exercising.
Yeah.
Like those kinds of things. If you see like things that they weren't doing before and that are a little unusual for them, and
Mhm.
they're kind of like, or maybe even on social media, they're obsessing a little bit more about what they're seeing, like things like that, I would say.
Yeah, no, definitely things to watch out for. And what you mentioned in the beginning kind of brought back something to me. One of my friends
Yeah.
was talking about, body image the other day, and she mentioned how I think her daughter is 5 or 6, and she comes back home and she was very upset, and she asked her
Yeah.
mom, and she was like, "Mom, am I fat?" And she was like taken aback. She was like, "Well, where did that come up from?" And she's like, she didn't really delve into the story, but she was just shocked by how someone as young as, 6 years old
Yeah.
would come back and worry about something like that. And she was like, and now we're very, very conscious of mentioning such words at home.
Yeah.
They're making a conscious effort to develop a positive body image.
Yeah.
That's extremely important. Like you said, it could really, really impact the mental health of
Mhm.
kids, young kids. Yeah, they don't even
I
have to be
know.
teenagers or high schoolers or anything like that. So we have to kind of inculcate or ingrain that sense of positive body image in kids and teenagers who are looking up to us.
Right.
I know you also say that health doesn't have to be trendy to be effective. Do you want to elaborate a little bit more on that? Because I think that's going to resonate with a lot of people because all we do is follow trends. Like you said,
I
90s was
know.
about one thing, 2000s was about the other thing. So it doesn't have to be a trend.
No, I mean, honestly, like, have you heard of the blue zones?
Actually, I haven't, no.
Okay, so there's these areas in the world. There's like maybe 5 or 6 areas in the world where people there's like a high amount of centenarians, like people who are living over 100 years old,
Yes.
and they've been studied, and they all, even though they're in all different parts of the world, there's Nicoya, Costa Rica, there's Okinawa, Japan, like
Mm.
all different parts of the world, but they all have very similar habits. And so it's a few habits. So one is that they walk a lot, so they'll walk everywhere through town. Another is they have low stress in their lives. So because they're not in like this like city environment where they have a lot of stress, right? So that's another habit, or lifestyle,
Mhm.
I guess, habit that they have where they don't have a lot of stress. They also eat a lot of whole foods and more. They might not necessarily be fully plant based, but like more plant based.
Okay.
Um, and then I'm trying to think of what there were a couple of other things, but a lot of their main habits were very similar. So it really just comes down to having very simple habits, and that is really going to help us, live healthier and live longer as we grow older. So it's not about, there's all these different diets out there and all these things, but
Yeah.
it's really just keep it simple, because that is really what's going to help you stay healthy as you get older.
Yeah. And I think that's a great point because, there's been just take fat out of your diet, just take carbs out of your
Yeah.
diet, just add more fat to your diet.
Yeah.
And it makes it more and more confusing. It
I
limits your
know.
choices, and you're like, okay, I can't eat this, and okay, no fat. So all of this goes out of my food choices, or no carbs. All of this goes
Yeah.
out of my food choices. And what you're saying is we don't need to do any of that. We just need to have a
No.
healthy, balanced diet, and
Yeah.
that's kept people going for years. Like you said, they're centenarians. So I'm sure they're doing something right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're
It's
not
just
following any diet trends.
no, exactly. And it's not about only they're not focused only on nutrition either.
Yeah.
And so I am a holistic nutritionist. So like I look at all the things, like
Yeah.
how's your sleep level, how's your stress level, like all they're all connected, and that is what, is helping them live longer lives because it's all balanced.
And yeah, and to that point, we see a lot, and we're guilty of that too at times. So we're
Yeah.
cutting out all the carbs in our diet, or picking out things. But then if we have to walk to the store that's 5 minutes away, we get it. We
Yeah.
have to drive there because we
I
can't
know.
walk there, right? So to your point, yes, let's just incorporate all healthy habits in our lives. So if you have to walk if the store is 5 minutes away and the weather is nice,
Yeah.
why not just walk or bike or something like that?
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
So I think, yeah, all good points. Thank you so much, Nadia. It was
You're
a pleasure
welcome.
talking to you. And I'm sure that a lot of people will be developing healthy habits, incorporating better nutrition in their diets after this conversation. And I wanted you to mention a little bit about your energy habit method. What is that to close out the conversation?
Yeah. So I'm launching a new program, and this has been a passion project of mine because what I found, I've been a nutritionist for several years, and I found that sometimes it's really like the what I think of as very simple habits, but a lot of people struggle with, and that's what we're going to focus on is really just building the building blocks of a healthy lifestyle. And so, things like, just the accountability and of making sure that everyone is drinking enough water, moving every day. Like to me, it's very simple, but it's really not because these
Oh,
are literally things that people struggle with, especially, as we're busy, we have busy lives
yeah.
and it's hard to find that time, but I'm going to help women really find that time to focus on themselves because I think that that is really important because that only helps our families and everyone around us, and it's so important. So it's going to be I'm currently promoting it, and there is a wait list for it right now. So it's nourishedbynadia.com at energy waitlist. Actually, let me just double check that. I think it's energy waitlist. But yeah, you can always, yeah, I think that's the link.
Okay.
Um, and yeah, so I'm really excited about that. And I hope that, I hope that it helps a lot of women.
Yeah, and I think that is a great effort, and I hope a lot of women benefit from that. But I just wanted to say, like you said, that there's simple things, and we all know that we should walk, we all know that we
Yeah,
should eat healthy, but we don't do that. We don't end up doing that. And the
no,
other important thing is that we're not consistent. Maybe I'll walk today, but tomorrow I'm not gonna
exactly.
find an excuse to not do that, or I'm too lazy, or I'm too tired, or whatever. I've had
Yeah.
a bad day. So I think that's very, very important to incorporate in your life, and consistency. And I'm glad you're leading the effort and help us all develop all those simple, consistent, happy, and healthy habits. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course.